After 15 years of being left out of family reunions, they had the nerve to show up at my mansion. I opened the door, kept my voice steady, and watched the color drain from their faces. I never thought I'd hear that doorbell again. Not after everything. But there I stood, in my sprawling Atherton mansion, a place built from the ashes of rejection, frozen as I watched them through the security camera. My family, the very people who had cast me out 15 years ago, now standing at my gate, their faces a twisted mix of awe and desperation. It was a moment of brutal, undeniable comeuppance. Growing up in a seemingly perfect Chicago home, my childhood should have been ordinary. My dad, Walter, was an engineer, my mom, Elaine, a beloved third-grade teacher. From the outside, we were the quintessential American family, four-bedroom colonial, white picket fence, golden retriever. But appearances, as I learned, are incredibly deceiving. I was the youngest of three. My brother, Philip, 7 years my senior, was the golden boy, brilliant, athletic, charming. My sister, Sophia, 5 years older, was the family beauty, a talented pianist and debate star. And then there was me, the afterthought. From my earliest memories, the difference in how I was treated was palpable. My siblings received endless praise and attention. My achievements? Met with indifference or worse, criticism. Straight A's from me would get a dismissive, "That's what we expect." For Philip or Sophia, it was celebrations and special dinners. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" Mom would sigh when I struggled with piano lessons. "Sophia was playing Mozart at your age." Dad was no better. He was at every single one of Philip's football games, cheering loudest, boasting to anyone who'd listen. But when I qualified for the state science fair in 5th grade, he claimed he was too busy. "Science isn't really a spectator sport, Olivia," he said, waving me off. "Besides, I have an important meeting." I later found out that important meeting was Philip's practice game. My 10th birthday was the starkest example of where I truly stood. Mom had promised a small party. I'd been buzzing for weeks, even making the invitations by hand. The morning of, over breakfast, she dropped the bomb. "Olivia, there's been a change of plans. Philip has a championship game today, and we all need to be there to support him. We'll have to reschedule your party." My heart sank. "But Mom, my friends are coming in 2 hours. We can't cancel." Dad cut in, his voice sharp, "Don't be selfish. This is a big day for your brother. Family comes first. Family comes first." That phrase would haunt me for years. It never seemed to apply when I was the one who needed support. The party was hastily canceled. I called each friend, fighting back tears, explaining we'd celebrate another time. Then I was dragged to Philip's game, where I sat in the bleachers for 3 hours, utterly forgotten, while my parents cheered and Sophia socialized. No one sang happy birthday. No one even mentioned it. We got home, no cake, no presents, just leftover pizza from Philip's victory celebration. I ate alone in my room, tears silently falling onto my plate. Sophia was perhaps the cruelest. As a young teenager, she found ways to torment me psychologically. She'd invite friends over, then lock me out of rooms, whispering secrets that stopped the moment I entered. She borrowed my things without asking, returning them damaged or not at all. When I complained to our parents, she'd put on an innocent face. "Olivia's just being dramatic again," she'd say, and they'd believe her every time. Philip wasn't actively mean, just profoundly indifferent. He could have protected me, but he chose to live in his world of sports and popularity, too busy to notice my quiet suffering. The only person who showed me genuine love was my grandmother, Eleanor, my mother's mother. Grandma Eleanor lived an hour away and visited once a month. During those visits, I felt seen for the first time. "You have a special spark, Olivia," she'd tell me as we baked cookies. "One day, the world will see what I see in you." She brought me books because she noticed how much I loved to read, unlike my parents who saw it as antisocial. She attended my science fairs and school performances, sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. With Grandma Eleanor, I didn't have to compete for attention or love. It was freely given. At school, I excelled academically. My teachers praised my intelligence, but at home, it was always minimized. Book smarts will only get you so far, Dad would say. You need social skills like your sister if you want to succeed. I tried to join clubs to win their approval. I joined a debate team like Sophia, but when I advanced to regionals, my parents were too busy. I tried soccer, hoping Dad might show some enthusiasm, but he merely commented that girls' sports aren't as competitive as boys. By high school, I had resigned myself to being invisible. Education became my ticket to freedom. I worked part-time at the library, saving every dollar for college. I applied for scholarships in secret, determined to forge my own path. When acceptance letters came from Yale and Stanford, my parents seemed surprised, as if they'd never considered I was capable. Their reaction was tepid at best. "Those schools are very expensive," Dad's first comment. "And very far from home." I detected a note of relief in his voice at the thought of my leaving. It confirmed what I'd always suspected. I was an obligation, not a beloved daughter. My heart broke a little more that day, but it also strengthened my resolve to build a life where I would be valued. Little did I know, the worst betrayal was yet to come. The moment that shattered any remaining illusions about my family came when I was 23. I'd graduated from Stanford with honors, specializing in cybersecurity, and landed a job at a tech startup in San Francisco. I was starting to believe I could finally earn their respect. Then came the call. Grandma Eleanor had passed away unexpectedly. Devastated, I flew back to Chicago. The one person who loved me was gone. The funeral was somber. I sat alone in the front row, while my parents, Philip and Sophia, huddled together, a united front of grief. No one checked on me. After the service, everyone gathered at my parents' house for the reading of the will. I sat quietly, leafing through a photo album of Grandma Eleanor, trying to process my loss. When the lawyer arrived, everyone gathered in the dining room. Most items were distributed as expected. Mom got the house, Philip the car, Sophia the jewelry. Then came the surprise. To my beloved granddaughter, Olivia, the lawyer read, "I leave my grandmother's ruby ring and the sum of $5,000. You were always special to me, and I know you will make me proud." The room went silent. Then my mother scoffed. $5,000 and her old ring? That's it. I was stunned by her reaction. I hadn't expected anything and was deeply touched. The ruby ring was a family heirloom. Its sentiment mattered more than any monetary value. My father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "This is outrageous," he sputtered. "Eleanor always did favor Olivia for some reason." "For some reason?" I echoed, finding my voice. "Maybe because she was the only one who ever showed me any kindness in this family." That's when everything exploded. Years of resentment, years of secrets, came pouring out. "You want to talk about kindness?" my father shouted. "We took you in when no one else would. We gave you a home, an education, opportunities most kids only dream of. And this is the gratitude we get." Confusion washed over me. "Took me in? What are you talking about?" My mother shot my father a warning look, but it was too late. The damage was done. "You're not even our daughter," he spat. "You were 2 years old when we adopted you after your mother died. Lisa was Elaine's college roommate. Had you out of wedlock, then got herself killed in a car accident. No father in the picture. No other family willing to take you. So we did, out of the goodness of our hearts." The room spun. Adopted? This couldn't be real. I looked at my mother, silently pleading for her to deny it. Instead, she sighed. "We were going to tell you when you were older, but then it never seemed like the right time. 23 years, and it had never been the right time to tell me the truth about my own identity. All those years of feeling like I didn't belong, like I was different somehow, suddenly made terrible, crushing sense. So I've been living a lie my entire life?" I whispered. "Does everyone know except me?" "Most of the family knows," Sophia said with a shrug. "It wasn't exactly a secret. We just didn't talk about it. Not a secret to anyone except me, the person whose life it was." I felt sick to my stomach. "Why did Grandma Eleanor leave the ring to Olivia anyway?" Philip asked the lawyer. "It should stay with blood family." Blood family. Those words cut through me like a knife. Mrs. Eleanor specifically mentioned that Olivia should have the ring. The lawyer replied uncomfortably, because, in her words, true family is about love, not blood. That set my father off again. That old woman always did try to undermine our parenting, filling Olivia's head with nonsense, making her think she was special when we were trying to raise her to be realistic about her place in the world. My place? I asked, my voice rising. And what exactly is my place in this family? You should be grateful we took you in at all, Sophia interjected. Do you know how many orphans end up in the system? You had privileges most of them could only dream of. I looked at my sister, seeing her clearly for the first time. Privileges like being reminded constantly that I wasn't as good as you or Philip. Like having my birthdays forgotten and my achievements ignored? Those kinds of privileges? See, this is exactly why we never told you, my mother said. We knew you would react emotionally instead of rationally. Finding out my entire life has been a lie seems like a reasonable thing to be emotional about. I retorted. My father stood up, towering over the table. That is enough. I will not have you speaking to your mother that way under my roof. If you cannot show some gratitude for everything we have done for you, then perhaps you should leave. I looked around the table at the faces of the people I had called family for 23 years. None of them came to my defense. Not even Philip, who had always been the least antagonistic. In that moment, I made my decision. Fine, I said quietly, gathering my purse. I will go. But first, I want to know one thing. Did you ever love me at all? Or was I just a charity case you regretted taking on? The silence that followed was all the answer I needed. I walked out of that house and never looked back. The exclusion became official. No Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no family gatherings. I saw photos on social media, reunions, holidays, milestone events, all without me. Sophia would occasionally post pictures with captions like, "Complete family gathering," or "So blessed to have everyone I love in one place," pointed reminders that I was not considered part of everyone. Emails from my father were cold and formal, asking me not to contact them, to respect their privacy, as if I were a stranger harassing them, not someone who had lived as their daughter for over 2 decades. The ultimate pain came when I saw photos of my parents proudly attending Philip's wedding and later, the birth of Sophia's first child. Moments I should have been part of, erased from the family narrative as thoroughly as if I had never existed. With the $5,000 from Grandma Eleanor and her ruby ring as my only inheritance, I cut all ties. I vowed to build a life so successful that they would one day regret throwing me away. Little did I know just how dramatically that vow would be fulfilled. I arrived in San Francisco determined to forge a new beginning. The $5,000 wouldn't last long, so I had to be strategic. I found a tiny apartment in a less desirable neighborhood, sharing with 2 other young women, Alice, a nurse, and Jordan, a grad student. They were busy, which suited me perfectly. The apartment was cramped, barely enough space for a twin bed and small desk. It was a far cry from my comfortable suburban home, but it was mine, and there was freedom in that. I secured an entry-level job as a technical support specialist at a small software company. The pay was minimal, barely covering expenses, but it was a foot in the door of the tech industry. It was mundane work, but I approached it with fierce determination. "You're overqualified," my supervisor remarked, "but I appreciate your work ethic." I didn't want gradual advancement. Each night after my shift, I'd return to my tiny room and spend hours teaching myself programming languages and cybersecurity protocols. I enrolled in free online courses, participated in coding challenges. Sleep became a luxury. Every hour was an investment. To save money, I lived on ramen and peanut butter sandwiches, cut my own hair, shopped at thrift stores, walked miles to avoid public transport. Every dollar saved was a dollar that kept me independent from the family that had rejected me. 6 months into my self-imposed exile, I attended a free tech workshop on emerging threats in cybersecurity. The presenter was Professor Diana Chen from Berkeley, a renowned expert. I sat in the back, absorbing every word. When the presentation ended, I gathered my courage and approached her with a technical question. Professor Diana looked surprised. "That's an insightful observation," she said. "Most people wouldn't have caught that nuance. Are you working in the field?" I explained my background, carefully omitting the personal details. Something about her kind eyes made me feel seen, like Grandma Eleanor. "You have a good mind for this work," she said. I'm hosting a hackathon next month at Berkeley. You should come. That hackathon changed everything. Working with a team of strangers, I helped identify a significant vulnerability in a popular financial application. Our solution won third place and, more importantly, caught the attention of several industry professionals. Professor Diana became my unofficial mentor, inviting me to events and recommending resources. You have a unique perspective on security, she told me. You see vulnerabilities others miss because you think differently. Under her guidance, I began developing a concept for a new approach to data protection, focused on behavioral patterns. You should consider seeking investors, Professor Diana suggested. This concept could revolutionize personal data security. The world of venture capital was completely foreign. I spent weeks researching, preparing a business plan, practicing my pitch. Professor Diana introduced me to a few contacts, but the responses were lukewarm. The concept is interesting, but you have no track record. Come back when you have a working prototype. We typically invest in founders with more experience. Rejection after rejection piled up. 27 investors turned me down. Each dismissal echoed the rejections from my family. But unlike then, I refused to accept I wasn't good enough. To sustain myself, I took a second job bartending at a popular tech hangout. The irony wasn't lost on me, serving drinks to successful entrepreneurs whose ranks I desperately wanted to join. The late-night shifts were exhausting, but they provided extra income and, unexpectedly, networking opportunities. One night, a customer named Travis left a generous tip after we discussed digital privacy. He returned the next week, asking more questions about my ideas. After several such conversations, he revealed he was an angel investor specializing in cybersecurity. I've been testing you, he admitted. You're the real deal. Let me see your business plan. 2 weeks later, I received an investment of $200,000. It was a fraction of what established startups received, but it was enough to quit my tech support job and focus on building my product. I kept the bartending gig on weekends for extra cash and to stay grounded. The development process was grueling. I rented a small office and worked 16 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week. Technical challenges I hadn't anticipated required me to learn new skills on the fly. There were moments of doubt when the code wouldn't work or a security protocol failed. During those dark times, I'd hold Grandma Eleanor's ruby ring and remember her words, "You have a special spark, Olivia." The loneliness was perhaps the most difficult aspect. While I had acquaintances like Professor Diana and my roommates, I had no close friends, no one to celebrate small victories or provide comfort during setbacks. I had built walls around myself after the betrayal, afraid to let anyone close enough to hurt me again. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, exhausted and overwhelmed, questioning if I was on a fool's errand. But each morning, I'd get up and return to my code, driven by a determination that grew stronger with each obstacle. After 8 months, I had a working prototype. Travis arranged a demonstration for more established investors, and this time they were impressed. This approach to behavioral authentication is genuinely innovative, one commented. This could be a game changer. That demonstration secured an additional round of funding, enough to hire 3 employees and move to a proper office. Secure Now was officially born, the first step toward building the empire that would make my family regret their decision. The launch of Secure Now's first commercial product exceeded my most optimistic projections. Our behavioral authentication system caught the attention of major tech publications. TechCrunch called it a revolutionary approach to personal data security. Within 6 months, we had licensing agreements with 3 Fortune 500 companies. As the company grew, so did my confidence. I expanded from our small office to a full floor in a downtown San Francisco building. My team of 3 grew to 15, then 30, then over 100 employees within 2 years. Each hire was carefully selected, not just for skills, but for passion and integrity. I was building more than a company, I was creating the family I'd never had. You've created something special here, Diana remarked during a visit, having transitioned from mentor to friend. And I don't just mean the technology. She was right. The culture at Secure Now was built on respect, collaboration, and recognition. Every milestone was celebrated, every birthday acknowledged. I made sure no one ever felt invisible or unappreciated, the way I had for so many years. Our second product, a secure communication platform, attracted attention from government agencies and international corporations. The contracts that followed pushed Secure Now's valuation past $100 million just 3 years after founding. Financial success brought changes to my personal life. I moved from my shared apartment to a luxury condo overlooking the bay. I replaced my thrift store wardrobe with designer clothes, not out of vanity, but because I learned that in the business world, appearance matters. I traded my old laptop for cutting-edge technology, my bus pass for a Tesla. Yet, despite these material improvements, an emptiness remained. Each night, I'd return to my beautiful but silent condo and feel utterly alone. Success was a cold companion. On the 5th anniversary of Secure Now's founding, we secured our biggest deal yet, a $200 million contract to overhaul the security infrastructure for a consortium of international banks. The office celebration was jubilant. But when the party ended, and everyone went home to their families, I returned alone to my condo. As I sipped wine on the balcony, I found myself scrolling through social media. There was a new post from Sophia, family reunion at our parents' lake house. Annual Sullivan family tradition. So blessed to have everyone together. Everyone except me, of course. I closed the app and made a decision. If I couldn't have the family I was born into, I would create a life so full and meaningful that their absence would no longer matter. The next day, I began looking for a permanent home. After weeks of searching, I found a sprawling estate in Atherton, the most exclusive neighborhood in Silicon Valley. $15 million is a significant investment for a single person, my financial advisor cautioned. I'm sure, I replied. This isn't just a house, it's a statement. I spent the next 6 months renovating it to my exact specifications. The formal dining room became a state-of-the-art home office. One wing became a library filled with thousands of books, fulfilling my childhood dream of a personal library like the one in Beauty and the Beast. Each room was designed to reflect my personality, warm and inviting. Unlike the stark minimalism of my condo, this house was meant to be lived in, to create memories. The crown jewel was the garden. I hired a renowned landscape architect to create an English garden with winding paths, hidden benches, and year-round blooms. It was the kind of garden Grandma Eleanor would have loved, and I placed a small memorial bench with her name in a quiet corner, surrounded by her favorite flowers. As Secure Now continued to expand, now with over 500 employees and offices in 5 countries, I consciously balanced professional success with personal growth. I joined boards of charitable organizations supporting foster children and orphans. I established a scholarship fund for computer science students from disadvantaged backgrounds. I mentored young women entering tech, determined to help them avoid the obstacles I'd faced. Through these activities, I slowly built a circle of friends who knew nothing about my past and accepted me for who I was now. There was Travis, my first investor, now a trusted advisor and sailing companion. Diana, of course, remained a constant presence, often bringing her husband and children to dinners at my home. Jordan, my former roommate, now taught literature at Stanford. We met monthly for coffee and book discussions. My executive team, Layla, Marcus, Derek, had started as employees but had become something more over the years, people I trusted and respected. This carefully constructed family of choice helped fill some of the emptiness. But there were still moments when the past would creep in. Late at night, I'd sometimes look through an old photo album I'd kept from my childhood, one of the few possessions I'd taken. The smiling faces in those photos seemed to belong to strangers now, people I once thought loved me but had proven otherwise. 10 years after founding Secure Now, I took the company public. The IPO was wildly successful, making me a billionaire overnight, at least on paper. My face appeared on the cover of business magazines, Security Queen, How Olivia Sullivan Built a Tech Empire from Nothing. If my biological family saw these articles, they never reached out. Their silence was both a relief and a lingering wound. On the 15th anniversary of the day I'd been cast out, I hosted a charity gala at my Atherton estate. The event raised over $10 million for foster care organizations, a cause deeply personal to me. As I addressed the crowd of Silicon Valley elites, politicians, and celebrities, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey. From a confused, hurt young woman with just $5,000 and a ruby ring, I had transformed into one of the most powerful women in tech. The mansion, the respect of my peers, the impact of my charitable work, all testified to what I had achieved despite, or perhaps because of, being discarded by those who should have loved me most. Yet, for all my success, a small, wounded part of me still wondered why I had never been enough for them. That part was about to get an unexpected answer. The very next day, my security system alerted me to visitors at my gate. It was a quiet Sunday morning. I was enjoying coffee on my terrace, still in my silk pajamas, watching hummingbirds. The tranquility was shattered by the chime. Annoyed, I picked up my tablet. What I saw made my coffee cup slip from my fingers and shatter on the stone floor. There they were, standing at my gate like ghosts from a past life. My father, Walter, now in his 70s, his dark hair completely gray, his tall frame slightly stooped. My mother, Elaine, beside him, her face more lined, but still wearing the same pearl necklace. Philip stood slightly behind them, heavier, his athletic build softened. And Sophia, still immaculately dressed, her blonde hair expertly highlighted, with 2 children clutching her hands, a boy of about 10 and a girl of 8. 15 years. 15 years of silence, of exclusion, of pretending I didn't exist. And now they were here, at the entrance to the life I had built without them. My first instinct was to ignore them. But curiosity won out. What could possibly have brought them here after all this time? What could they want? With trembling hands, I pressed the intercom. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "Olivia, it's Mom and Dad," my mother's voice crackled through the speaker. "And Philip and Sophia. We were hoping we could talk to you." Talk to me? After 15 years? I should have said no. I should have told them to leave and never come back. But some deeply buried part of me, that little girl who had always longed for her family's approval, made me press the button to open the gate. I rushed to my bedroom to change, pulling on jeans and a simple blouse, running a brush through my hair. I didn't want to look like I'd made an effort for them, but neither did I want to appear caught off guard. By the time the doorbell rang, I had composed myself, at least outwardly. I opened the front door with what I hoped was an expression of mild interest rather than the emotional turmoil raging inside me. The 5 of them stood on my doorstep, looking up at the grand facade of my home with poorly concealed awe. "Olivia," my mother said, stepping forward with arms outstretched as if to embrace me. "You look wonderful." I stepped back slightly, avoiding the hug. "Thank you," I replied coolly. "This is unexpected." "We've been trying to find the right time to reach out," my father said, his voice softer than I remembered. "When we saw the article about your charity gala in the Wall Street Journal, we thought it might be time to reconnect." The Wall Street Journal. Of course. They hadn't come because they missed me. They had come because they had seen evidence of my wealth and success in a national publication. "Please come in," I said, my hospitality on autopilot. I led them through the grand foyer with its marble floors and sweeping staircase, into the main living room where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens and pool. "This is quite a home," Philip said, whistling softly as he took in the custom furnishings and original artwork. "Thank you," I replied, gesturing for them to sit on the Italian leather sofas. "Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee? Water?" "Coffee would be lovely," my mother said, perching on the edge of the sofa as if afraid to fully commit to sitting in my home. I used the excuse of preparing coffee to escape to the kitchen, leaning against the counter, taking deep breaths. I had imagined this scenario countless times, fantasized about what I would say. But now that it was happening, I felt unprepared, vulnerable in a way I hadn't felt in years. When I returned with a tray of coffee in my finest porcelain, a petty display of wealth I couldn't resist, the children were exploring the room while the adults sat in awkward silence. "These are my children," Sophia said as I set down the tray. "Jack and Emma." I nodded to the children, who regarded me with curious eyes. "Hello," I said, unsure how to interact with this niece and nephew I'd never met. Had Sophia told them about me? Did they know they had an aunt who had been erased? They are beautiful, I said, because it seemed like the expected response. We have missed you, Olivia, my mother said, tears welling in her eyes. The performance was almost convincing. All these years we've thought about you. Have you? I asked, my voice steady, despite the anger bubbling just beneath the surface. That's interesting, because I haven't received so much as a birthday card or a Christmas greeting in 15 years. We didn't know how to reach out, my father said. After the way things ended, we didn't know if you would want to hear from us. You could have tried, I pointed out. My email address hasn't changed. My company isn't exactly difficult to find. We've been following your career, Philip interjected, reading about your success. We're all very proud. Proud? I repeated the word, tasting bitter on my tongue. Now you're proud? Not when I graduated with honors. Not when I started my company. Not when I needed support and encouragement. Only now, when I have a mansion and a billion-dollar company. Now you're proud. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The children sensed the tension and moved closer to their mother, who put protective arms around them. Olivia, my father said after a moment, clearing his throat. We didn't just come to reconnect, though that is certainly our hope. We also came because, well, we could use your help. And there it was. The real reason for their sudden appearance. What kind of help? I asked, already knowing the answer. Financial help, my father admitted, having the grace to look embarrassed. My company went bankrupt last year. The economic downturn hit us hard, and at my age, finding new employment has been challenging. I lost my job in the tech sector 6 months ago, Philip added. Been freelancing, but it's not stable, and I'm going through a divorce. Harold left me for his secretary. Classic story, Sophia said, her voice dropping to ensure her. Children didn't hear. The settlement is still being negotiated, and my lawyer bills are astronomical. I looked at each of them in turn. These people who had cast me out when I had nothing, and had returned now that I had everything. The audacity was breathtaking. We were thinking, my father continued, apparently mistaking my silence for consideration, that perhaps you could help us restart the family business. A loan of about $2 million would allow us to reestablish ourselves and create something the whole family could be part of. The whole family, I repeated. Yes, my mother said eagerly. You could be part of it too, of course, though I imagine you're too busy with your own company. But you could be a silent partner, and it would help secure your niece and nephew's future. She gestured to the children, a calculated move to pull at heartstrings I wasn't sure I still possessed. We would pay you back, of course, my father added, with interest. And perhaps you could consider allocating some shares in your company to the family trust. Keep it all in the family, so to speak. The nausea I felt was overwhelming. The sheer nerve of them to walk into my home after 15 years of silence and ask not just for money, but for a piece of the company I had built entirely without their help or support. To speak of family as if it were a concept that still included me when it suited their financial needs. I see, was all I said, my mind already formulating a response they would never forget. I rose from my seat with deliberate calm, smoothing the fabric of my jeans as I gathered my thoughts. The room felt charged with tension, my family watching me with expressions ranging from hope to thinly veiled calculation. Please make yourselves comfortable, I said with practiced hospitality. The coffee is imported from a small cooperative in Colombia. I visited the farms myself last year. This casual mention of international travel, of the kind of lifestyle where one could personally visit coffee producers halfway around the world, was not lost on them. My father's eyes narrowed slightly, recalculating the extent of my wealth. Sophia glanced around the room with renewed interest, as if mentally appraising the value of each piece of furniture and artwork. I excused myself briefly and returned with a leather-bound album and my laptop. Sitting both on the coffee table, I resumed my seat across from them. Before we discuss any financial arrangements, I said, my voice even, I think we should catch up on the past 15 years. After all, we are family, right? I emphasized the word family, just enough to make it clear I recognized the irony. My mother nodded eagerly. Yes, of course. We have so much to catch up on. Let us start with family gatherings, I suggested, opening the album. I've been keeping track of them, you know. Their confused expressions turned to discomfort as I revealed the first page, a printed screenshot of a Facebook post from 15 years ago, shortly after our falling out. It showed a Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house, the caption reading, "Grateful for family today and always." "This was 3 months after you told me never to contact you again," I said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "I noticed all of you were there. Plus Uncle Robert and Aunt Linda and their children. Cousin Jessica even flew in from Denver." I turned the page. Christmas, same year. Nothing better than having the whole family together for the holidays. "That's a lovely treat, Mom. Did you use the ornaments I made in elementary school, or did those get thrown out along with my baby pictures?" Page after page, I showed them evidence of the life they had lived without me. Birthday celebrations, graduations, weddings, baby showers for Sophia's children, anniversary parties for my parents, all documented on social media with captions about complete family gatherings and everyone we love in one place. "Why do you have all these?" Sophia asked, her voice strained. "Know your enemy?" I replied with a small smile. "A basic principle of security." "You taught me that, Dad. Probably the most valuable lesson you ever gave me. Always know who you're dealing with." I closed the album and opened my laptop. "Now, let's move on to more recent history." I turned the screen toward them, showing an email from my father dated 12 years ago. I read it aloud, my voice steady. "Olivia, I must insist that you cease any attempts to contact family members. Your mother was very upset by your Christmas card. We have moved on with our lives and expect you to respect our privacy. Walter Sullivan." I looked up at my father. That was in response to the only Christmas card I ever sent after leaving. A simple card wishing you happy holidays. No requests for reconciliation, no accusations, just a card. That was your response. He had the decency to look ashamed, staring down at his hands. "And this," I continued, scrolling to another email, "is from Sophia to her friend Jenna, which she accidentally copied me on 3 years ago." Ugh, saw another article about my sister, the tech genius. Mom was going on about it all day. As if being rich makes up for being such a freak growing up. Some people just have all the luck despite being totally socially inept. Charming Sophia. My sister's face flushed red. "I didn't mean." "Oh, I think you did," I interrupted. "But it's fine. Your opinion of me stopped mattering a long time ago." I closed the laptop and leaned forward, looking each of them in the eye in turn. "For 15 years, you have lived your lives as if I did not exist. You celebrated holidays, shared milestones, supported each other through hardships. You were a family in every sense of the word, just without me. And that was your choice." I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden I had created, at the bench dedicated to Grandma Eleanor, the only family member who had ever truly loved me. "Now you come here, to the home I built, to the life I created entirely without your help. And you talk about family as if it is something that can be picked up and put down whenever it becomes convenient or profitable." I turned back to face them. "Let me be very clear. I do not need a family that only wants me when I have something to offer them. I do not need parents who only acknowledge me when I am successful. I do not need siblings who mock me behind my back but come asking for handouts." The color had drained from my father's face. My mother was crying silently, whether from genuine remorse or frustration at the failure of their plan, I couldn't tell. Philip stared at the floor, and Sophia sat rigid with anger or embarrassment, or both. That said, I continued, my voice softening slightly as I looked at the children, who appeared confused and uncomfortable. "I do not believe in punishing children for the sins of their parents." I returned to my seat and addressed my niece and nephew directly. "Jackson, Emma, I am your Aunt Olivia. We have never met before today, but that is not your fault. I would like to get to know you both if you're interested." The children looked to their mother for guidance, uncertain how to respond to this stranger claiming to be their aunt. And to that end, I said, returning my gaze to the adults, "I will not be giving you $2 million to restart a family business that failed once already. I will not be signing over shares of my company to a family trust. What I will do is establish education funds for Jackson and Emma to ensure they have the opportunity to attend any college they choose when the time comes. Sophia's expression was a complex mixture of relief, disappointment, and wounded pride. "We don't need your charity," she began. "It is not charity," I cut her off. "It is an investment in the only innocent parties in this room. The funds will be managed by my financial team and will only be accessible for educational expenses. You will have no access to the money." I stood, signaling that the meeting was coming to an end. "That is my offer. Take it or leave it." My father stood as well, his face flushed with a familiar anger. "After everything we did for you, what exactly did you do for me?" I asked quietly. "Remind me." "We gave you a home when no one else would," he sputtered. "We fed and clothed you. Sent you to good schools. You did the legal minimum required of parents," I corrected him. "And you made sure I knew every day that it was an obligation, not a choice made from love. The moment I was old enough to be cast out, you did exactly that." My mother rose, tears still streaming down her face. "Olivia, please. We made mistakes. We are sorry." "Are you sorry for what you did, or sorry that I became successful without you?" I asked, because those are very different things. She had no answer. "I think it is time for you to go," I said gently but firmly. "My assistant will contact you regarding the education funds for the children if you choose to accept them. Otherwise, I wish you all well in your future endeavors." I walked them to the door, maintaining my composure through sheer force of will. As they stepped outside, Sophia turned back, her expression softer than I had seen it in decades. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I am proud of what you have accomplished." I really am. Too little, too late, I thought, but I nodded acknowledgement of her words. "Take care of your children, Sophia," I replied. "They deserve better than what we had." I closed the door on my past and leaned against it, finally allowing the tears to come. They were not tears of sadness or regret, but of release. In facing my family, in refusing to be manipulated by them again, I had finally freed myself from the last chains of their approval. I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person I knew would understand. "Diana, it's Olivia. Can you come over? My family just left and I need a friend right now." As I waited for Diana to arrive, I looked around at the beautiful home I had created, at the life I had built from nothing but determination and the belief that I deserved better. For the first time, I truly believed that Grandma Eleanor would be proud of the woman I had become, not just for my success, but for finding the strength to stand up for myself. The sound of tires on the driveway announced Diana's arrival just 30 minutes after my call. She found me in the garden, sitting on Grandma Eleanor's bench, the ruby ring gleaming on my finger as I twisted it absently, a habit I developed when deep in thought. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside me. "Rough day." "You could say that," I smiled weakly. I recounted the entire encounter. Diana listened without interruption, her face reflecting my own emotions. $2 million in shares in your company," she repeated when I finished. "The audacity is almost impressive." That startled a laugh out of me. Right? After 15 years of radio silence, they show up expecting a handout as if all the years of exclusion and cruelty never happened. "But you stood your ground," Diana said, squeezing my hand. "You offered help to the children without letting the adults manipulate you. That took courage." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the garden. The emotional upheaval of the day had left me drained, but also strangely at peace. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said finally. "For years, I fantasized about a moment like this, about them seeing my success and regretting how they treated me. But now that it has happened, it feels empty somehow. Their regret, if they even feel it, doesn't change anything." Diana nodded thoughtfully. "Because you've realized that their approval was never the prize you thought it was." Her words resonated with the truth I had been slowly discovering. "Exactly," I said. "I spent so much of my life trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Building this company, this fortune, part of me was still that little girl trying to prove I was worthy of being loved." "And now?" Diana prompted. "Now I know that was never the problem. Their inability to love me was their failure, not mine. No amount of success on my part could ever fix what was broken in them." In the days that followed, I experienced a range of emotions, from residual anger to unexpected grief for the family relationships I had never truly had. But beneath it all was a growing sense of liberation. The last lingering hope that they might someday acknowledge their wrongdoing, that we might somehow become a real family, had been laid to rest. That fantasy had been holding me back in ways I hadn't fully recognized. A week after their visit, I made a decision that would change the course of not just my life, but potentially many others. I established the Eleanor Grace Foundation, named for my grandmother, dedicated to supporting children in the foster care system, particularly those who had been adopted and then rejected or mistreated. The foundation would provide not just financial assistance, but psychological support, mentorship, and legal advocacy. I committed $50 million as initial funding and pledged to personally oversee its operations. During the planning, I reconnected with Jordan, my former roommate, who now taught at Stanford. Over coffee, I shared my vision and my personal connection. "I never knew," she said, visibly moved. "All those years we lived together. I had no idea what you had been through. I was good at hiding it," I admitted. "I didn't want anyone's pity." "It's not pity to let people care about you, Olivia," she said gently. "It's human connection, something I think you've been denying yourself for too long." Her words stayed with me, prompting a period of deep reflection. I had built walls to protect myself, but those same walls had kept out the genuine connections I craved. My success, my wealth, even my charitable work, none of it could substitute for authentic human relationships. True to my word, I established the education funds for Jackson and Emma. Sophia accepted them with a stiff email of thanks. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a small bridge to the next generation, a chance to break the cycle of emotional neglect. 3 months after my family's visit, I joined a support group for adults who had experienced family estrangement. Sitting in a circle with others who had similar stories, I found a level of understanding I hadn't experienced before. These were people who knew firsthand the particular pain of being rejected by those who should have loved them unconditionally. "Family is not always blood," said one woman during a particularly powerful session. "Family is who loves you when you need it most." This simple statement crystallized something I had been learning gradually over the years. Looking around at the lives I had touched, and those who had touched mine, I realized I had built a family of choice, one far more nurturing than the one I had been born into. There was Diana, who had believed in me when I was just a nervous young woman. Travis, who had taken a chance on my ideas when 27 other investors had said no. My executive team at Secure Now, who had stood by me through growth and challenges. The children benefiting from my foundation's programs, whose letters and artwork now decorated a wall in my home office. 6 months after the confrontation, I decided to host a gathering at my Atherton estate. Not a formal gala, but a simple celebration of connection. I invited everyone who had become important to me, Diana and her family, my first roommates, Travis and his wife, members of my support group. The house and gardens were filled with laughter and conversation, with people who knew my story and accepted me as I was, flaws and all. As I looked around at these diverse individuals who had chosen to be part of my life, I felt a sense of belonging I had searched for my entire life. Late in the evening, I found a quiet moment alone on Grandma Eleanor's bench. The ruby ring caught the light from the garden lanterns, sparkling with the same warmth I remembered in her eyes. I could almost hear her voice. "True family is about love, not blood." She had been right all along. Blood ties may be the beginning of family, but they are not its definition. Family is built through love, respect, and choices made day after day to show up for one another. It cannot be measured by DNA or legal documents, but by the depth of connection and the safety found in each other's presence. My journey from rejected child to successful businesswoman had been driven, partly, by a desire to prove my worth to those who had discarded me. But the true transformation came when I realized that my worth had never been in question, only their ability to see it. The family that had once defined me by my absence had lost their power over my happiness. In their place was a community of chosen family, people who had earned their place in my life through their actions, not their blood relation. As I sat in my garden, surrounded by the life I had built and the people who had helped me build it, I felt at peace in a way I never had before. The wounds of the past would always be part of my story, but they no longer defined my future. The ruby ring on my finger was no longer just a reminder of the one person from my biological family who had truly loved me. It had become a symbol of the truth I had learned through pain and triumph, that we all have the power to create our own definitions of family, to build connections based on genuine love rather than obligation. For anyone out there who has felt the sting of family rejection, who has wondered if something is inherently wrong with them because the people who should love them the most have turned away, I want you to know this. Your worth is not determined by those who failed to see it. You deserve love. You deserve belonging. And you have the power to create a family of the heart that will cherish you exactly as you are. Have you ever had to create your own family when your biological one let you down? What helped you heal from family rejection? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please consider sharing this video. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we choose for ourselves.